Welcome back to MidEast In-Depth. Today we will look at the ongoing crisis in Iraq and US foreign policy there. Patrick Cockburn, the independent veteran correspondent, writes a book on what he deems a new dark age in Iraq. An extract from his book is featured in the paper. The Independent starts with a pessimistic, albeit realistic statement from the book. Iraq has disintegrated. Little is exchanged between its three great communities, the Shia, Sunni and Kurds, except gunfire. The outside world hopes that a more inclusive government will change this, but it is probably too late. The main victor in the new war is Iraq, is the Islamic State. Peter Cockburn goes on to say that the ISIS which is taken over wants to kill Shia rather than negotiate with them. Iraq is facing a civil war that could be as bloody as anything that we have seen in Syria and could go on for years. The writer argues the sense of crisis was made worse by the main government channel broadcasting upbeat accounts of the latest victories. Government claims were seldom backed up by pictures, but observers think, watch enough government television and pretty soon you would decide there is not a single member of ISIS in the country. The rise of ISIS and its military successes has led to short-sighted euphoria in Sunni countries where they congratulate themselves that it is no longer only the Shia who are on the offensive, but in practice, ISIS's seizure of a leadership position in Syria and Iraq's communities will most likely prove to be a disaster for them. And speaking of Sunni countries, Peter Cockburn says the importance of Saudi Arabia and the rise of return of Al-Qaeda is often misunderstood and understated. Saudi Arabia, he says, is influential because of its oil and vast wealth, make it powerful in the Middle East and beyond. But not only due to financial resources, it's Wahhabism, which relegates women to second-class citizens and regards Shia and Sufi Muslims as heretics and apostates to be persecuted along with Christians and Jews. And as ISIS takes over major parts in Iraq, President Obama has raised controversy over his Iraq policy. LA Times' Michael Memoli, Kathleen Hennessy and David Cloud write on the matter an article titled, "Obama Sees No Quick Fix in Iraq." Speaking on the White House South Lawn, Obama said the US would work with other governments and the United Nations to try to create humanitarian corridors to bring to safety the Yazidis who are under siege atop Mount Sinjar. And before departing for a family vacation on Martha's Vineyard, President Obama said, "I don't think we're going to solve this problem in weeks. I think this is going to take some time." The writers argue that Obama made it clear that success would hinge in large part on whether Iraqi leaders can create a unity government that accommodates the country's diverse political, religious and ethnic factions, adding that it would be a big mistake for us to think that we can, on the cheap, simply go in, tamp everything down again, unless Iraq's leaders agree to compromise. The US president asserted protecting American citizens in Iraq, whether they're diplomats, civilians or military. He added, "We will continue to provide military assistance and advice to the Iraqi government and Kurdish forces as they battle these terrorists so that the terrorists cannot establish a permanent safe haven." But perhaps what raised controversy in Obama's pre-holiday statements was that he mentioned that the solution lies in the hands of the Iraqi people themselves. He was quoted saying, "The nature of this problem is not one that a US military can solve. We can assist, but we can't do it for them." And to assess more Iraq and US foreign policy, we are now joined by political analyst Dr. Abdur Rahman Jamil. Welcome to MidEast In-Depth.
Hi, how are you?
Dr. Jamil, while President Obama is providing humanitarian assistance in Iraq, especially to the persecuted Yazidis, he is also opting for limited military action, but he has been criticized on his statement, quote, "The nature of this problem is not one that a US military can solve. We can assist, but we can't do it for them." How would you assess this?
Well, I think, first of all, we have to understand that the United States is not a neutral power. It has its own agenda, its own strategy, its own policy. So I'm sure there are some kind of controversy inside or within the U.S. administration and also among Congress people. And the point is that some parts, or some groups in the Congress, they don't want Obama to repeat what happened in 2003. And the aftermath of that, and the loss of soldiers. But I think this time maybe the case is different. they decided that they have to get involved, especially near the Kurdish area, because it has some specific reasons. In my opinion, the Kurds are almost closer than the Iraqis, the Iraqi Arabs, to the United States. And maybe the United States has its own agenda. It has its own maybe establishment within Kurdistan. Maybe they have listening stations. Maybe they have monitoring stations there. Maybe they have some military specialists there. So I think the Americans, they have their own agenda. They don't have to explain it to the world. Whenever they want to do something, they do it, and they don't need an explanation or a justification for their action. So what Obama has decided, I think now, under the pretext of protecting the ethnic minorities like the Shabak and the Christians, maybe he's trying to provide, this is what they say, to provide some kind of protection and also to prevent any kind of genocide which might take place there. Especially the conflict is waging between the Kurdish Peshmerga and the Islamic Caliphate or the Islamic militants. So I think the situation is different, completely different. I think in my opinion, Obama he will not send some kind of troops, to the area, but maybe it would be suffice just to have some airstrikes here and there, in order maybe to push back the Islamic militants back and maybe protect Kurdistan.
And Dr. Jamil, speaking of the militants, the ISIS has no tolerance for other than Sunnis in Iraq and the Middle East in general. What do you think of the jihadi flag being flown in East London? And do you think would the US allow it on US soil?
Well, I think you're right. Most of the supporters of this Islamic militants are Sunnis, and that's why you see, in my opinion, if you look at the map, of the military map now over Iraq, you see that they are in I wouldn't say hundreds of thousands, maybe they are over 1 million or 2 million maybe. So these people are not foreigners coming into Iraq to fight for Iraq. Maybe a few of them are, but I think most of them are Sunnis, and they have their own grievances, blaming the Iraqi government of being, mostly Shiite, and maybe they had been, denied the role to take part in the decision making in Iraq. That's one side. But I think this is true. Yeah. Most of the Sunnis support the Islamic militants, and they even here in London, among the Pakistanis, among the the Afghanis, and among some Arab Sunnis here in London.
But is this justified, Dr. Jamil? Do you think it would be allowed in the US to have a jihadi flag raised over a housing estate?
You see, what happened here in Tower Hamlet area, borough in London, they did have this flag. This is not the first time. I myself, I was a witness of a car driven by 3 women, and under the veil, of course, and they were, flying the black flag of the Islamic jihadists. So I think they are taking advantage of this space of freedom in London, in England in general, or maybe in Europe, maybe. And you see, 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago or 3 months ago, a group of them, they went to another borough in London, and that is the Brent borough, and they asked the councillor there to declare the area an Islamic area, because they say this is under jurisdiction, Islamic jurisdiction or Sharia. And it was, of course, they were rejected by the authorities. The police, explained when they were approached, they say, well, raising a flag wouldn't affect anyone. It wouldn't damaging anybody's
It is forbidden
interest.
in the Netherlands to raise similar flags. It offends others, which compare it even to raising a Nazi flag, which is offensive, obviously, to the Jews.
I don't know. I can't say this, but I think this kind of I call it some kind of provocation, because the Islamic community in England, in London in particular, they have their own. They have been very active recently. I think they have been supported by some groups, maybe outside Britain. Maybe they were even financed by these people, and they have been very. I wouldn't say courageous, but in a way, you see, they don't fear any law, because the law in my opinion, sometimes they consider it as sometimes they're turning a blind eye to what they are doing. They say as long as they are not affecting anyone, as long as they are not, endangering the area, so let them do what they want to do. But
Dr. Abdur Rahman Jamil, political analyst and media figure, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
And for more updates, please visit levant.tv. You could also subscribe to MidEast In-Depth on iTunes. Thanks for watching and bye for now.